In the verdant land of the sage people, nestled in the heart of West Africa, there lived a cunning and mischievous spider named Anansi. Anansi was not just any spider, he was known far and wide for his cleverness and trickery. He had the uncanny ability to talk and think like a human, which he often used to outwit the creatures of the forest. One day, Anansi, always hungry for more knowledge and power, learned that Nyame, the sky god, possessed a great pot of wisdom. This pot contained all the knowledge in the world, secrets of the earth, the skies, the waters, and the beings that inhabited them. The pot was kept in a hidden location, known only to Nyame and guarded by fierce creatures. Determined to possess this pot, Anansi devised a plan. He transformed himself into a tiny spider, slipping through the smallest cracks and crevices until he reached Nyame's palace. There, he overheard the sky god discussing the pot of wisdom with his advisors. Anansi learned that the pot was hidden at the top of the tallest tree in the forest, a tree that seemed to touch the very heavens. Anansi set out on his quest to claim the pot of wisdom. The journey was fraught with danger, but Anansi's cleverness helped him overcome every obstacle. He encountered a river filled with crocodiles, but he tricked them into believing he was a harmless leaf. He crossed a desert where the sand seemed to shift and swallow travelers whole, but he used his web to create a makeshift shelter and navigate the treacherous terrain. Finally, Anansi reached the base of the towering tree. As he gazed up, the tree seemed to stretch infinitely into the sky. Undeterred, Anansi began his ascent. He climbed for days, resting only when he could secure himself with his web. The higher he climbed, the more the wind howled and the air grew thin. But Anansi's determination was unwavering. Halfway up the tree, Anansi encountered the first of the guardians, a massive eagle with wings that could block out the sun. The eagle demanded to know why Anansi was climbing the tree. Thinking quickly, Anansi spun a tale about how he was on a mission from Nyame himself to retrieve the pot for safekeeping. The eagle, suspicious but unwilling to disobey Nyame, let Anansi pass. As Anansi continued his climb, he encountered more guardians. There was a giant serpent whose scales glittered like diamonds, wrapping itself around the tree. Anansi, with his quick wit, flattered the serpent, praising its beauty and strength, and convinced it that Nyame had sent him to ensure the pot was still safe. The serpent, preening from the compliments, allowed Anansi to continue. Higher still, Anansi met a formidable lion with a roar that shook the very tree. The lion was not easily fooled, and Anansi had to use all his cunning to persuade the lion of his noble intentions. He told the lion of a prophecy he had heard, where a small but clever creature would ensure the wisdom of the world remained safe. The lion, reluctantly believing the tale, let Anansi pass. Finally, Anansi reached the top of the tree. There, nestled among the branches, was the pot of wisdom, shimmering with an ethereal glow. Anansi approached it with reverence, his eyes wide with anticipation. He reached out and touched the pot, feeling the power and knowledge it contained. As Anansi prepared to take the pot back down the tree, he felt a surge of greed. Why should he share this wisdom with anyone else? With all the knowledge in the world, he could be the greatest being alive, revered by all. Deciding to keep the pot for himself, Anansi spun a web around it and secured it to his back. Descending the tree was much harder than climbing it. The weight of the pot made Anansi slow and clumsy. The guardians he had tricked on the way up were now watching him closely. The eagle, noticing the pot, swooped down and demanded to know why Anansi was taking it. Anansi, caught off guard, stammered and stumbled over his words. The eagle, realizing it had been deceived, let out a cry that alerted the other guardians. The serpent uncoiled itself, the lion roared in anger, and together, they moved to stop Anansi. Panicking, Anansi tried to flee, but the weight of the pot made him easy to catch. The guardians brought Anansi before Nyame. The sky god, towering and majestic, looked down at the small, trembling spider. Nyame's eyes were filled with disappointment and anger. Anansi, he said, his voice booming, you have deceived my guardians and tried to steal the pot of wisdom for yourself. Such greed cannot go unpunished. Anansi, realizing the gravity of his actions, pleaded for mercy. He promised to use the wisdom for good, to share it with all the creatures of the forest. Nyame, seeing a flicker of sincerity in Anansi's eyes, decided to give him a chance, but not without consequence. "You will be allowed to keep the pot," Nyame decreed, "but you must share its wisdom with the world. And for your deceit, you will remain a spider, small and vulnerable, to remind you of your actions." Humbled and repentant, Anansi returned to the forest with the pot of wisdom. True to his word, he began to share its contents with the other creatures. He taught the birds to build nests, the ants to work together, and the monkeys to use tools. The forest flourished with new knowledge and skills, and the creatures thrived. Anansi, though still mischievous, had learned a valuable lesson. He used his cleverness to help rather than deceive, becoming a beloved figure in the forest. The pot of wisdom remained with him, a symbol of the power of knowledge and the importance of sharing it. Years passed, and the tales of Anansi's cleverness and his journey to obtain the pot of wisdom became legendary. He became a symbol of ingenuity and wit, teaching others that intelligence and creativity were more valuable than brute strength. Anansi's stories were told and retold, passed down through generations. Each tale carried a lesson, a piece of wisdom that Anansi had shared. From his adventures with tricking larger animals to his clever solutions to problems, Anansi's legacy grew. One day, as Anansi sat by the river, he noticed a young spider struggling to spin a web. Anansi approached and gently guided the young spider, teaching it the techniques he had learned from the pot of wisdom. The young spider, grateful, thanked Anansi and scurried away to try again. Anansi watched the young spider succeed, a warm feeling of pride filling his heart. He had come a long way from the greedy spider who had tried to steal wisdom for himself. Now, he was a teacher, a guide, and a beloved figure in the forest. The story of Anansi and the pot of wisdom spread beyond the forest, reaching distant lands and new cultures. Each retelling added new layers and interpretations, but the core message remained the same: the value of wisdom, the importance of sharing it. Despite his age and the countless stories about him, Anansi never stopped seeking new adventures. One day, he heard of a new challenge, a mysterious maze deep in the heart of the forest that no one had ever navigated successfully. Intrigued and eager for a new test of his wit, Anansi set off to find the maze. The maze was said to be enchanted, changing its paths and entrances. Anansi, with his keen sense of direction and sharp mind, entered the maze with confidence. As he navigated the twisting corridors and hidden traps, he used all the wisdom he had gathered over the years. He encountered riddles that required deep thought, traps that demanded quick reflexes, and illusions that tested his perception. With each challenge, Anansi's cleverness shone through. He remembered the lessons from the pot of wisdom, applying them with precision and creativity. After days of navigating the maze, Anansi reached its center. There, he found a beautiful garden, unlike anything he had ever seen. In the center of the garden was a crystal fountain, its water sparkling in the sunlight. As Anansi approached, he noticed an inscription on the fountain: "For the wise and the kind, a reward awaits." Anansi, curious and cautious, touched the water. Immediately, he felt a surge of energy and knowledge. The fountain was a gift from Nyame, a reward for those who had proven themselves worthy. Anansi, having shared the wisdom of the pot with the world and used his cleverness for good, was deemed worthy. This new wisdom was unlike anything he had experienced before. It was not just knowledge but a profound understanding of life itself. With this newfound insight, Anansi realized that his role was even greater than he had imagined. He was not just a keeper of wisdom but a protector of balance and harmony in the forest. Anansi made his way back to the forest, where he was greeted with curiosity and anticipation. The creatures had heard of his journey to the maze and eagerly awaited his return. Anansi gathered them all together and shared the story of his adventure, emphasizing the importance of wisdom, balance, and harmony. He explained how the forest was a delicate ecosystem, where every creature, plant, and element played a vital role. He taught them the value of cooperation and the need to respect and care for one another. The creatures listened intently, absorbing the lessons Anansi imparted. With Anansi's guidance, the forest community began to thrive in new ways. Animals that once competed fiercely for resources learned to share and work together. The birds, inspired by Anansi's teachings, organize themselves to build better nests and find food more efficiently. The monkeys used their newfound knowledge to create tools that made their lives easier. Even the ants, who were already industrious, found new ways to improve their teamwork. The entire forest began to change, becoming a place where wisdom, cooperation, and kindness prevailed. Seeing the positive changes in the forest, Anansi decided to form a council of creatures. This council would consist of representatives from every species, coming together to discuss issues, make decisions, and ensure that the wisdom and harmony they had achieved would be maintained. The first meeting of the council was a historic event. Creatures of all sizes and kinds gathered in a great clearing, where Anansi presided over the assembly. He emphasized the importance of listening to each other, valuing each other's perspectives, and working together for the common good. The council meetings became a regular occurrence, a place where conflicts were resolved and new ideas were born. Anansi's leadership and wisdom guided the council, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose. News of the transformed forest and Anansi's wise leadership spread far and wide. Creatures from neighboring forests and distant lands came to see for themselves and learn from Anansi. They marveled at the harmony and prosperity they witnessed and eagerly sought Anansi's guidance. Anansi welcomed these visitors with open arms, sharing his wisdom and the lessons he had learned. Anansi's time as a leader eventually came to an end, but his legacy endured. The forest continued to thrive, guided by the wisdom and values he had instilled. The Council of Creatures carried on his work, ensuring that harmony and balance were maintained. The stories of Anansi were told and retold, becoming a cherished part of the cultural heritage. Each generation learned from his adventures, his cleverness, and his wisdom. In the heart of the forest, where the crystal fountain still flowed, a statue of Anansi was erected. The creatures of the forest would often gather there, sharing stories and celebrating the legacy of their beloved leader.